the cliche engineer is, a person who's very antisocial. I remember when I was like in my second year, someone was like, Dean, here's some dating advice for an engineer. He's like, think about something you really want to talk about and then talk about something else. I was just like, ouch. But like
3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Engineering Buzzcast. I'm Jacob Primus with my co-host and good mate Daniel Hardy. Today we have a special guest joining us, Dean Van Deventer, who is a project manager and development manager at Zen Group, who are a Gold Coast based company responsible for a range of commercial property and construction related engineering entities. His role entails work such as managing projects from early design and DA lodgement all the way through to handover, whilst ensuring project deliverables are achieved along the way. Dean has a background in a Bachelor of Engineering Honours, majoring in electrical funny enough, with a Master's degree in Project Management from QUT. But I'll say no more and let Dean explain the rest. So with that said, Dean, welcome to the Engineering Buzzcast.
Welcome, Dean, to the show.
Thanks.
It's good to have you.
Yeah.
So Dean, give us a little bit of a rundown about who you are, what you do, and what you're working on. Just real quick.
Yeah, sure. Well, guys, it's a pleasure to be on. So, look, I studied engineering, 4 years, Bachelor, Griffith University, electrical. And then I went on to do a Master's in Project Management. And these days, I work in the construction space, which is pretty fun, but more on the development planning side. So not so much heavy bogged down in the actual construction. So I'm working on projects that don't even exist yet, if that makes sense. So very early conceptual. Okay. So definitely wearing a developer's hat, working with the developers who actually have buy-in on these projects, and then running feasibilities on sites, putting together the numbers, figuring out whether a project on a technical engineering aspect would work, on a planning side, whether there's market interest for that particular project. And then, if you can sort of get a green light on those different areas, or the criteria that we have, you have a project. And then you take that, you start running with it and start getting funding. So the projects that I'm working on specifically would be more in the commercial space. So in construction, what they tend to do is they separate residential from commercial. So with commercial projects, we're talking things like retail assets, industrial zones, things like that. Our company that I'm in, we're focusing mainly on fuel stations, which is
so like newer fuel stations.
Newer fuel stations, brand new ones. So we're finding sites that they're just a greenfield site or maybe brownfield, but we're identifying it and then going, okay, well, what's the highest and best use for this particular site? It could be a service station. Okay. It could be something else.
Oh, that's really cool.
And then this is where like your network really becomes useful, because if you have an operator, say like a gym operator that wants the site because they want to put a gym there, well, that might be the highest and best use for it. But then you might find that you could have a service station guy who's like, no, I want to be in there and I'll pay you this much rent.
It's like a bidding thing.
So is it just like a battle of who can pay more sort of thing?
It's a very fine balancing act, because the director I work with, he's a young guy, just like me. And he's incredible. And one of the things he always tells me is like, Dean, the feasibility makes the rules. So the numbers make the rules. So if we have two people coming in and they would make an offer, and it's not just the number of, hey, this is how much we're going to pay per annum. It's also a combination of how long. Usually you want a pre-commitment for 10 years.
So like a feasibility.
Correct. And then you run the different models, and then you ultimately want to go with the one that gives you the greatest profit margin. But then there's other elements as well, because certain proposals have a whole different category on how you're going to get financing. And then there's like this whole financial sector, which is just unbelievable, the money that's out there, and how projects get off the ground, how you get partners on board and other types of stakeholders to really make it happen.
Is there a lot of like zoning involved in that? So you'd get like a property and you'd help like zone it, or look at the zones, and you'd sort of essentially figure out like through like a system of things.
Brown and greenfields before.
Yeah.
Is that what Dan's sort of?
Okay. You're definitely on the right track there. So every city council has their own planning scheme, and within that planning scheme, they also have a zoning map. And different properties are zoned. Some are zoned residential, but then there's different levels of residential. You can have low, medium to high. And then on top of that, you have things like mixed use zoning or industrial zoning. So you could find a site and it could be perfect. It could tick all the boxes, but it's zoned residential. And then you're like, oh, well, a service station isn't a permitted use on that particular zone. But that's not the end of the world, because what that means is you could probably get that site for a good steal. And there's planning risks, sure. But one of the things you do is you mitigate that risk. So you know that that's one of the big risks. So then what do? Okay, well, I'll talk to my town planner. Maybe we can have a meeting with council before we lodge our application and our proposal. And they might tell us, that's a go. You will probably also start, like, if it's in a residential zone that's got no houses nearby, well, then maybe it's incorrectly zoned, and then there's a number of things that you try and change. And it's not to say you can't get a non-permitted use in that zone. It just does mean you will have a longer application process. But if you can pull it off, you add a lot more value, and that uplift in value, if you can, without risk, there isn't reward, right?
So, exactly.
So what actually got you from, like, how did you go from electrical engineering, right? All the way to like this point now in project management?
No, it's a great question. I sometimes find myself asking the same question. I would like to say it was a combination of just my interests naturally took me there. I think I'm also religious in that I think my plan, like my steps were already planned before I even took them.
Right.
But there's an element of, well, you actually have to walk the walk yourself. And I worked very hard to be where I am. But it's weird because at school, this is before, I even went into university. I had three things on my criteria as like, what do I want to do when I graduate? And one was architecture. The other was engineering, and then accounting. So like these like three fields, effectively I'm wearing those hats.
Yeah, you're doing all three at the same time now.
So it just worked out so well. But
that's so cool.
I spent 4 years at uni and doing electrical engineering, and I put my head down. I never failed a subject. I came close to failing a few, and it was I was very lucky. I had like parents that were very supportive,
awesome.
And just like gave me that environment and space to do my thing. But I also squandered a lot of that time too,
right?
Just doing what kids do, playing video games till 2 a.m. My generation my generation was playing Battlefield 3, so it was so good. But just gradually from doing that and entering the workplace, university and the workplace are completely different animals. And there is an opportunity came up to go into more of a project management side of things as soon as I graduated. And I was just like, you know what, I want to try that out.
So you sort of just chased your passion?
A little bit, because, I once I finished, and I'm sure we'll touch base on those areas where it's like, well, what were those hurdles or those things that you faced that were difficult? But when I graduated, probably 3 months after, like I wasn't proactively looking for work. I just finished my thesis. I did that while I was over in Germany. So through the university, went to Germany, did my...
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, in total, I spent 6 months there. I did my industry experience and then did that.
All in Germany?
All in Germany.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, oh man, it was...
How different is the climate, like engineering-wise, there compared to here?
Look, it's true what they say. The Germans are on another level. No, they are on another level. I went to this one university, and pretty much every university in this region, or I think it was across the country, they all had their own like go-kart club. And they would hire or recruit student engineers from different faculties to be part of the team that would...
We have a similar thing to that, actually.
Yeah, we've got a racing team that sort of do that as well.
Well, have we always had a racing team?
How long ago did you graduate?
Look, I graduated like 2015.
Yeah, I think 2016 they started.
I know.
Yeah.
But look, I was under the impression that the Germans had been doing this for years. It was like a pretty big deal. And they would hire a professional racer to race these cars. So like that right there just tells you that
they were ahead.
Yeah, they were ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, because it's so cold that everyone's just behind their desks.
Yes, inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so different about the Australian, engineering climate as well.
We laid back.
We like to get outside and we like to go down the beach in our weekends and stuff. But if you're living in Germany, I mean, what are you going to do? You're just going to be like, oh, I'll go back inside.
100%. But the culture is different too. Where we are laid back, they have this very much driven. They very much like by the book, which I thought was very strange. So I remember at one point, like everybody would stop at 12 o'clock to go have lunch.
Exactly.
Everybody. And then they would all walk out of the laboratory. And we'd all walk down to
it's like those
the
scenes
cafeteria.
in high school movies where the clock hits like at the end of the day and they all just run out.
100%. And then as soon as you're back, you might have a quick 5 minutes chat and then boom, everyone's back at it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So what would you say was your biggest takeaway from visiting Germany? Like what was the biggest thing that you learnt personally going there? And,
it was a very impressionable time in my life. Yeah. So from an engineering perspective, I think I was just blown away with how advanced they actually were. Like their research area, like I suppose it's sort of like here at Griffith, you have your normal classes of academia that engineers do, but then you also have the lecturers and the people who run the workshops who are doing their doctorates and doing research papers. In Germany, they definitely doing that obviously as well, but it seems like there's a lot more interest from the industry as well, and they just have a bit more of a tighter network there. So I thought that was just really impressive how they streamlined that whole process.
What was your thesis on?
My thesis?
Not that we will completely understand what you're talking about, but we would love to hear about it.
I'll give you the dumbed down version.
Okay, cool.
So it was modeling wind turbines and how they were interrupting signals.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. So basically, it was looking at like if you had a wind turbine near an airstrip, how would that interfere with any radio waves that went past?
That's interesting.
So, and then you just testing different frequencies and figuring out what the break patterns were like. So, it was a interesting way to model something, and it was challenging for sure because I was the only Australian student. And no one else really spoke English, although Germans are most of them are bilingual. And I had like a really good professor there that sort of gave me some guidance and helped me out. But
that's good.
Yeah, it was. And then I came back and had to present it to the Australian audience, and I don't even think the assessing lecturer had a very good understanding of what I did because he wasn't an electrical engineer. So which is pretty funny.
Interesting.
So have you been able to use any of those things you learnt during electrical engineering, what you're doing now? Like, have you been able to apply anything that you learnt?
Yeah, no. I think and you guys would probably pick up on this, there's a real practical side to engineering at a university level, where it's a lot of how to solve a problem.
Right.
One thing I think they probably could do at a university level is sort of get the students to more network, because people solve problems too, not just like the theoretical numbers, but that approach to life, I think helps you anywhere.
Yeah, at the moment, I think there's quite a big push for that. I've noticed just in like recent subjects we've been doing, they've been changing the syllabus a bit more to be aimed more to that networking. So yeah. Well, we noticed it as well, which is why we ran our own networking event.
Yeah.
So we noticed the importance of it. So
what when you guys were saying that earlier, I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome. Because I tell you what, when I was a little kid at uni, I was literally just stuck in my bubble of, I won't say I was the cliche antisocial engineer.
But definitely not overly social.
No, I wasn't overly social. Yeah, like I wasn't being challenged socially. Put it that way.
Okay.
I think we've been really focusing on like helping our peers like in that social aspect. I think I think the networking events and stuff like that really make a big
because there
difference.
are a lot of smart people out there who are very qualified to do things.
And who can actually hold conversation. It's not necessarily that people can't hold the conversations. It's just getting them in the environment where they're open to talk to people.
Yeah.
And I think the problem that lies within that is that they don't get out there as much, and then therefore they don't find their line of work that they want to work in. So they just slot themselves into anything that they fit is easiest for them. So therefore, like, things aren't as efficient as they could be. Yeah. Which is what I feel anyway, personally. So.
I think I definitely fell into that trap for sure.
Yeah, right.
You almost, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So there's this element of like, here's your options, and you just go with it rather than digging deeper and actually exploring more, and also being exposed to people who can, I guess, present a whole new world to you.
Just try new things.
Totally. Like, I mean, working in construction, I've been very fortunate to see all the different engineering faculties as they apply to construction. And when I was studying, it was very generic. It was like electrical engineering, mechanical. In fact, I think mechanical was just coming out at Griffith.
Really?
Yeah. And then it's civil engineering.
Yeah.
But like the reality is, like civil engineering branches out into, like that degree branches out to structural engineering, civil engineering, hydraulic engineering.
Multifaceted. Really.
Yeah, exactly. And a hydraulic engineer is not quite a civil engineer once that you start working. It's different. So figuring out like the space and the environment that you actually want to operate in is huge. And I definitely wasn't prepared for it.
Yeah, right. Well, on the topic of your work anyway, since this is called the Engineering Buzzcast, I just want to ask, what are some of the things that are buzzing in your line of work in terms of like innovation or like recent breakthroughs and new opportunities in your line of work?
One thing I've noticed is there's a few things that actually push in. Some of the stuff we haven't adopted yet. I know with the construction managers and project management guys, there's a push for like what they call BIM. You've probably heard of it.
Oh, I forgot what it stands for.
Yeah,
I've heard it before. Yeah, what is it?
Yeah, well,
BIM modeling.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It's like an interface where they model the building.
Okay.
And then you can actually manage the progress as it's built.
Right. Okay.
So that helps with a number of things. It helps with you being able to work out the materials, status where the project's at.
Building information modeling.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
Yeah. So that's really been adopted by the bigger projects.
Okay.
On small stuff that I'm doing, like say just a service station, you don't need to go to that extreme.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's something like it's around the corner. On a like just an operator basis, an interesting thing I have noticed is with this whole electrical car push, there's obviously like the market's anticipating that petrol cars won't be a thing of the past per se, but will be used less as EVs take on more market share.
Definitely.
And I've noticed a number of operators requesting solar panel allowances on their service station canopies.
Or even just charging stations as well. I imagine that take up
yeah.
like a lot of room in civil projects.
And then the charging space allowance as well is they're looking at, like say 3 per a service station. But who knows how that's gonna change things. And then the planning code is also starting to change.
Right.
I've really been exposed to the planning code for the last 2 years, but one thing I've picked up is the environmental side of things is becoming a lot more red tape, and it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Exactly.
It does make our job harder and projects costlier, and ultimately the end consumer is the one that wears that cost.
Do you mean in like just taking extra steps to protect the environment sort of thing?
Yeah. Correct. Okay. Yeah. So like, but how practical they are, I don't know. So for example, if you chop down a koala habitat tree, one, you need to have a very good reason for why you're going to do it. And then there's financial penalties involved if you can't, I guess, replace that tree.
Yeah. Fair.
So, and granted, I think that's a good thing, but what it does do obviously is it adds costs.
Yeah, of course.
And then if you're building a house, the person buying the house is the one that's ultimately gonna pay for that. So, no one's gonna do it for free. But again, I think these are necessary measures, and as we start to figure these, I guess, efficiencies out, and it will naturally we'll find a good balance.
I think that's what it's all about, really, especially in engineering, is finding that right balance in the middle, so that's really interesting. Because you discussed before having switched from electrical to civil, that big jump. So that's what I want to ask as well. Just for everyone out there, what has personally been the biggest hurdle for you engineering wise, whether that be in uni or what you're doing at the moment or what you have done, that sort of thing? Just in your field of work, what's been the biggest hurdle that you've had to jump through?
Yeah, okay. Wow. The biggest, or can it be a few?
You can have a few.
I'll give you a few. I'll give you one of the biggest hurdles for me was I'll start university. There are some people that you study with, and I wouldn't say prodigies, but they've got it.
I can totally relate to that.
And you kind of look at it and you go, wow, what does this guy have that I don't? One thing I noticed is there was for the guys who are really performing, you go in those people who get in GPA 7s.
Oh
yeah.
We were just talking about that the other day. Actually, trying to find that right balance to get to that point.
It's superhuman, I call it.
It's almost like a superpower almost to get there.
Sometimes I think it is, but what I've come to realize, the superpower is they're disciplined.
Yeah.
There was this one guy, man, I forgot his name, like Dinadu or something weird like that. Yeah. And this guy, he would wake up at 5 a.m. to start his assignments. And by the time I got to the campus at let's say 7:30, which I thought was pretty early, especially given I was playing Battlefield till 2 a.m. I'm crushing it, and I'm signing this paper and I'm struggling, and he's already answered half the questions, and I'm leaning on him for help. But the reality is he had spent 2-3 hours before I even started going through those questions. So it was, and he got rewarded for it. So look, as far as my big hurdle, I think one was learning just how to be disciplined. I won't say even in high school, I was academic. I put my head down, did my assignments, got them in on time. But there's another element where you're driven. So it's like a discipline where you're driven and you want it so bad.
I think, definitely coming to university, there's a big wake-up call to switch your routine. Yeah. And that is a study schedule, a life schedule, and a personal schedule, where you're trying to balance all those elements at once. Yeah. And I think it's just like you mentioned, a big wake-up call. It's
because otherwise by week 6, you're like,
okay,
I need to do that now.
Get to week 11 and you're like,
you better have it by week 6, otherwise you'll be thinking about dropping courses.
Exactly.
It's growing up. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, no, totally.
Look, I think you guys are very similar. You graduate high school and you go straight into to university, college life, and you're just like, what? Like, because you're still figuring out how to be a man.
Yeah,
It's not like a straightforward transition. Oh, you're now this age. You're socially mature, but
to be self-sustainable, I think, rely on yourself to do things as well. Because I think in high school you can sort of just rely on your mates a lot to do things. You know, you get put into group projects and stuff, and it's like, oh, this is all right.
It's actually funny because when you first start uni as well, the first week is super chill. So you're like, oh, yeah, not too bad. And then my second week, you're like,
you get to build spaghetti towers. This is so easy.
Orientation week, and you pretend it's like a week one. You're like, I could do this. Yeah. It's going to be sweet.
Yeah, especially some of the design courses. You're like, oh, this is all right. I can get used to this.
Yeah, when you get to, engineering science, you get the physics.
Slap down calculus and physics, and then you're like,
oh, yeah.
This isn't playing with popsicle sticks anymore. This is
Mate, I remember my first lecture. There was like 250 of us. And you guys would know, because you're all engineers in the same year, you know, and that they have this like level of, I don't know if they did it intentionally, but like they were talking about the dropout rates.
Oh yeah, they do that at the beginning.
Yeah. And I remember one dude just was like, no, picked his stuff up and left.
During that lecture.
I know. I was like, dude.
I mean, good on him. He knows it's not for him straight off the bat. I mean, some people get like 2 years in and then they're like, oh no, what have I done?
Who knows? Maybe he was in the wrong lecture. Maybe he was like an architecture student and was like, wait a second, this isn't the civil engineering lecture.
Yeah. I never actually thought about that. I was under the impression he wanted to be there, but that was.
That's funny.
Yeah. That just set the premise for the rest of my uni life. You know. But going back to hurdles, another hurdle I faced was, I had done this degree, and towards the end I was, I applied to go to some like electronic lab to do some experience there, and I remember going into the interview and I totally screwed it up. Like, because they asked me some pretty tough questions, but they were actually basic questions that I should have known.
But you were just stressing.
It was a combination of stressing and also a combination of I didn't know. And it was like, and then that was like a very demoralizing thing.
You just sit there and you're like, yeah, that is a good question.
It's like, how would you answer it? Let me open up the internet browser real quick. So that was actually like a hard knock because I realized, well, maybe I should have, although I got these assignments across the line, like what did I actually get out of it? So huge wake up call.
I was just gonna say, and then I moved to project management.
Well, the crazy thing
the questions were easier.
Oh man, 100%. Yeah. Well, this is the thing, that some people that are just bred to be lab rats and just sit there,
no pun intended.
No, that was intentional. And they just sit there, playing with circuit boards, having a field day. And then there's, other people who just
mixing
see
dirt.
The bigger picture.
Dirt.
Yeah, but look, and then I went back to uni to do my master's in project management, and look, a hurdle there was I was working 3-4 days a week full time. Well, not full time, but like full days, and then I was doing night classes at like straight after till like 9 at night. So I'd clock off at 5, and this was in Brisbane, and I was living on the Gold Coast. So I'd have to go to the campus and then jump on a train and still come home, only to go back to this job site early in the morning. So
grinding it out.
Dude. It was I totally grinded.
There you go, discipline. You've learned
discipline.
Yeah. But like that time, it was completely different too, because I sort of. You start to narrow down your prospects as you progress through your engineering life. Like you realize, actually, this is the space I really like. So I wasn't so fond of electronic engineering. So it was weird that I went to an electronic interview. I was more into like the macro stuff, the high voltage infrastructure side of it.
Yeah, right.
And that's really where I should have been focusing my time. But then the project management option came up. I was like, well, it involves infrastructure and a whole heap more. So I ran with it, and I tell you what, it was rewarding.
Right.
That's so good.
And you get
that's important. It's important. You need something that's rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I think naturally the rewards will come as long as you're enjoying what you're doing. And don't do it because you're going to get like a good payout. Yeah. Do it because like you actually want to be there and you see it doesn't have to be the thing you want to do now, but it could be a stepping stone to what you want to do.
I feel like
later.
every facade of engineering has something that's actually good for everyone. You know, you've got your law, you've got the medical engineering, you've pretty much got every field.
Biomechanical engineering.
So well, on that topic of being like a lab rat and just constantly studying, what would be your biggest advice for students starting uni or still in uni at the moment, and any advice for when you graduate or eventually graduate? What would you say?
You know what? Pace yourself.
Yeah.
I'd say. I can talk to you all day about discipline and getting your head down and doing the hard yards. And that's not to say, really kick procrastination in the butt.
Yeah.
But pace yourself. I found that, when I did my master's, I took 2 years as opposed to a year and a half. And just having that extra time, it allowed me not to rush subjects.
Right.
Yeah.
And I could really sink my teeth into a topic and give it the attention it needed, and still work. Yeah. So like when I did my engineering, it was literally all I did was engineering. And I didn't really have much else during the week, because I didn't have time. But I like looking back, I wish I took maybe an extra year, maybe did a 4-year degree in 6. Yeah,
that's happening with me at the moment. I'm sort of just pacing it out as I go along. I mean, it's just finding that time between study and personal life as well, so I think just whatever works for you really is. If you're succeeding in it, I mean, you may as well just keep going.
But you also don't want to go through a subject and pass it but not really retain that information, because you will use it there's a lot of subjects that you really do need, especially depending on what you're doing, obviously.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But you don't want to just forget it just because I'm done and just push to the side.
That's right. For some reason I thought it was a race. I want to get into the workforce as quick as I can and be on a 6-figure salary ASAP.
I can relate to that so much, and I think a lot of people in our cohort relate to the same. Especially in university, you're going more and more and more into debt as you take more subjects, and then you fail a subject, and there goes a couple of grand. It's like I gotta finish now. I definitely feel that.
But I'm telling you, man, there's no race on that on that front. So that would be a big piece of advice, I think. That I'd tell a younger me. To pace yourself on that. And then I suppose the other thing is it would be, if you have an industry that you think you're interested in, definitely try and get your foot in the door while you're still at uni. I sat on my hands for sure. I took that for granted. I was like, you know what, I'll just do it when I graduate.
I'll be less busy.
I'll do it. I'll do it end of 3rd year. I'll do it end of 4th year. Never did. And then I figured, my first year out, I'll just be doing that, hustling the whole time. But I think it was a combination of me not being disciplined enough, and then also I think if you can do it while you study and then seriously not race your degree, you really do set yourself up for a bit more success, because theory is great and I think you need it. I also think you need the practical side of engineering too. To say that one's better than the other, I think is a bit harsh. But if you can get them side by side, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
assuming you're a high school student listening to this podcast who hasn't like decided if they want to go into engineering or not, or they like really like problem solving and like all the engineering stuff, but they're really not sure what they want to do, what would you encourage them to do to help them get a better understanding of what engineering is really like and whether they actually want to do it? Like imagine you're in high school now. Like before you started your degree, what helped you get into that, like actually starting at uni?
You know, I remember what sort of like sparked the whole like, let me do engineering and put that on my list was my physics teacher basically was like, hey, you have an aptitude for engineering. I was like, I like my physics teacher. He's a cool dude. So like that's what I did. But you know, when you're in school, you don't actually.
Yeah.
What do you really know about anything?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
I think you just know what you know from seeing movies.
Yeah.
And popular media.
That looks cool.
Like realistically, I think that's everybody, isn't it? Like just watching popular media and stuff and just being like, oh, that's cool. Like seeing like like Suits, the TV show, and being like, oh, well, I want to be a lawyer now. Or watching some medical TV show and being like, oh, I like medicine now. I think that's very much.
I think that's it. It's a very like a generic view of what an engineer is or something like that. And to be very frank, I didn't actually, looking back, I don't even think I knew.
Does anyone really know what engineers do?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What engineers even do?
Yeah. I think it was more just I would look at a computer and go, okay, I know someone built that.
Yeah.
Or like someone designed this building.
Yeah.
I wanted to know how they did it.
I want to make something cooler.
Yeah.
No, I think it's such a basic human instinct to just be like, how did that get put together? You know, like, how was that made? It's just,
totally. Yeah. And maybe that was the inquisitive side that sort of got me like, okay, engineering, that's where I want to go because I'm interested to know how does this work? And then I did like graphics design in high school too. So and all the math subjects. So it just seemed like the obvious choice because in like those were all the prerequisites to engineering. So I think it was inevitable that I went that way. But for a high school student, man, that's a tough one because, everyone gets exposed to something so different.
They do. Yeah. And especially different schools and stuff like that. You know, you got different programs, different teachers. Yeah, like especially coming from like a regional school, we didn't have any engineering programs. We didn't have anything like that. So it was just up to yourself to just find out what you like doing.
I'd probably say definitely don't discount the maths. When you're young, because I think a lot of people make that mistake and like, it doesn't really matter how well I do in maths because I'm probably never going to use it again anyway, and then they end up getting to engineering and they're like,
the most popular one, who needs Pythag? Trigonometry, chuck that out the window.
Jeez, I know exactly what you mean. I always had like a fondness for math, but when I was talking to some of the students, it's like, you didn't even do like Math B. It's like, oh man, like, that's tough. So it's good that they have like those initial base algebra courses at the start to get you back up to
refresher.
Speed.
Very important.
Definitely, I feel
like that is useful stuff. Look, granted, once you're working in a space, trying to remember those formulas, you don't need to. But it's good to have it instinctually.
Yeah, of course.
Program.
Yeah, I think that's the problem that I have too. Like with all these big, massive courses such as thermodynamics and all these other big ones, you have all these massive formula sheets. And it's like, do I really even need to remember them? Like, am I going to use it again? Like
you do use some. There is actually a lot of stuff that you practically do use, but it does really depend on your actual job.
It does,
like if you're doing calculations for an aircraft, you're going to need them. But if you're not doing any calculations, you're in a management position, you won't use them directly. You'll manage people who do use them.
That's true.
But this is the good thing is you've been exposed to the different
holistic
fields.
view of everything.
Precisely. And like the 101 principle of, here's a problem, we need a solution, and they all follow the same laws of math. Like that's really what you need to know. And then, you'll come across new formulas
Yeah.
And you'll be able to figure out how to use them when to use them because you have a basic understanding.
It was like what I mentioned to Dan in the first episode. I was like, you have to respect the math.
Yeah.
You know, like the math. You really hate it sometimes, but you have to respect how it's applied.
Yeah.
And you have to respect that some people understand it really well and that they can apply it. And I think that's just the most important thing, is just respect what you hate.
Yeah. And you can also teach yourself to like things that you dislike, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you it's almost like tricking your brain and being like, you know what? I actually do enjoy maths.
Yeah.
This is really cool. You know, and you just as long as you keep telling yourself that sort of thing, eventually
I think those moments always come though.
Otherwise, you can't just do engineering and like completely hate maths the entire time.
Yeah,
because like you're not going to get through. You're just going to be like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this.
I like it. Look, for me, the side of math that I enjoy the most is when you look at a balance sheet and you see the dollar numbers.
Yeah,
like that.
I think that's what most of us like.
Like that motivates me, and when you're in the project space and like you can add
that's
value.
a lot of zeros.
Yeah. You can add another digit in there.
Oh, he's gone.
You can just slide another zero in there.
Yeah. Not just being a bean counter, but like actually, being the one that influences when those numbers go up or down.
Especially if you get a commission.
Yeah, that's a bonus at the end of the year. All that jazz.
Definitely.
A share in the project.
Yeah. Well, on that topic, anyway, just as an end note, I want to ask you, which engineer or figurehead do you look up to the most for inspiration? And just a little note, it can be fictional as well.
Can be fictional.
It can be fictional, yeah. From any time period.
Any time period. It has to be an engineer of some kind.
Or an engineer or someone in STEM, I'm going to say.
In STEM?
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, all right. You have
No, I was just thinking of Pythagoras in my head the whole time.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of some Greek dude.
Cool,
right
man.
Now. Yeah,
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
What would we be without your triangles and stuff, man?
Yeah. Look, I think that this is a good topic where if I was to go historical, I wouldn't drop you any hard names, but like maybe Nikola Tesla or one of those guys. Like, when you from a electrical point of view, what a lot of those early engineers did was it was groundbreaking. Yeah. And they commercialized the sciences effectively. So that like I wouldn't say one specifically and go, wow, that guy's a genius. And
there's a lot of them.
Yeah,
it's too many to count.
Exactly. But I'll be a complete dweeb and go with like the cliche Elon Musk. Just the more I learn about the guy, he's impressive. I grew up in South Africa till the age of 12, and Elon Musk's South African as well. So I
no bias.
So I kind of always had this like respect for him, and then just knowing he went to the US and worked his ass off. Like he didn't just sit around. He found problems and was really dedicated to solving them. Whether it's space travel or whatever, like just writing script for PayPal or something like that. And he, look at him now. He's a huge success. And he would say he wasn't doing it for the money. But
yeah, of course.
But the cool thing is, though, I think if you're doing something that adds value or creates value, and not talking financial value, just solves a need. Like here's if there's a problem or a need, and you can find a way to provide that, you're naturally in business. And Elon Musk, I think, just tapped into some pioneering spaces where he took this, like when you can commercialize science, like that's pretty cool.
And not only that, but I think he raises a really good public awareness for engineering too. I think he puts a really good facade on it and presents it to the public quite well. He's
a good ambassador.
It gets that name out there. Like no matter what your thoughts are on the guy, but like he gets it out there. So I think that's good.
100%. Like look, the cliche engineer is a person who's very antisocial. I remember when I was like in my second year, someone was like, Dean, here's some dating advice for an engineer. And he's like, think about something you really want to talk about, and then talk about something else. It's just like, ouch. But Elon Musk, he's a nerd, but he's he fumbles about when he speaks, but he gets to the point, and you have huge respect for him. I mean, being in his position as CEO. That he's not just sitting behind a computer screen. He's actually dealing with people, finding the right person for a job, and putting them in a place where they can succeed and do what they need to. I mean, definitely huge respect for somebody who can do that.
Yeah. And I mean, you only have one shot at life. You may as well make the best of it, And it's pretty good for someone that, I'm not going to say young, but his age, he's gone quite far for that age. So.
I have definitely heard the saying a few times, the more people you help, the more money you'll make.
Yeah.
That's just what comes with it. If you help enough people, it'll just naturally come. That's why you'll hear a lot of them will say, chase actually helping people, and that will just come.
You need a team to make the dream work, right? Yeah. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly. Yeah. You would have learned that a lot from Project Manager.
Totally. I mean, you're only as good as your team half the time. If I've got a problem, like say an engineering problem, so we've come up with a development concept, and you want to put a crossover or an entry point into the site somewhere here. You then you're not a traffic engineer, so you got to call your traffic engineer and go, hey, I've just sent you an email. I've got you on the phone. Can you tell me if that will work? What are your thoughts? And you start nutting out solutions. And they might go, yeah, that works. But you can get some traffic engineers that just aren't commercial, and they will just, not give you a great enough advice, and then beyond that, you'll have a meeting with council, and and I'm just honing in on traffic engineers, but it's true with other professions as well in the space. But you can have a traffic engineer who can absolutely be a quarterback and sell the dream to council and answer all the questions correctly. If council has an issue, they know the answers. They can figure it out with council, make proposals where it goes, oh yeah, that's actually what we were thinking. Yeah, you guys have done the right thing there. But you can get an engineer that just freezes in that space. So that's why picking your team, they may be a consultant, they don't work directly for the company as such, but they're on contract work. That's your team right there. So you really got to cultivate those relationships and find the people that you can leverage, and they get rewarded too, because they get return in work, and it's I scratch your back, you scratch mine.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
100%. Exactly. And that's one of many characters that play a part in a project. So So Elon Musk is doing it with the rocket ships, So hats off to him.
You got to jump through a lot of hurdles to get to that point.
Oh man,
definitely. That's
respect.
For sure. That's pretty cool. Okay, well, thanks Dean for coming on our show.
Thanks so much for coming.
No, really appreciate it, and I'm sure a lot of people got a lot of insight into what you do.
Really interesting. Love to have you on again sometime.
Yeah, for sure. No,
definitely.
Thank you. This was fun.
And with all that said, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to share this with your mates or colleagues who also might benefit from these discussions as well. And if you can, just leave an honest review or rating on your preferred podcast platform. So with all that said, you've been listening to the Engineering Buzzcast with your hosts, Jacob Primus and Daniel Hardy. And until next time, see you in the next episode.
See you in the next episode.
See ya.
The top job is that of the engineer. This requires a great amount of ability and training in mathematics, and you should have some courses.